Good morning, everyone. We feel honored to open the second day of SuperAI this morning. Thank you for showing up. And thank you, Björn and Jonas, for coming all the way to Singapore. We feel obviously very pleased that you're here. And let's get right into it. So, Jonas, you're actually a serial entrepreneur, very impressive entrepreneur. And then your first business you sold to Apple. And then you worked for Apple for a couple of years, and then you left Apple and founded another company. So what's the idea behind Aleph Alpha?
So my last AI company was building supervised learning systems. So it's basically based on data labeling, based on bounding boxes around pedestrians, for example, training systems. And this is quite boring because supervised learning can only ever get 100% accuracy. So as to a pedestrian detector, it doesn't matter how much compute you throw at it and how much labeling you throw at it, will only ever, at max, detect 100% of all pedestrians. So that was pretty boring. I was bored by that. And then during my time at Apple, there was some work coming out from Apple and from other teams that showed that there is a new era of AI that's basically coming, which is the self-supervised, unsupervised systems that are not limited to a human signal that's kind of pre-labeled, but they are able to understand structures in complex environments, like the environment of 3D environments they can navigate, or the environment of language. And so this was really what I was fascinated about, and I felt that this is phenomenal. Like, this is what Yann LeCun said in NIPS 2016, where he said supervised learning is just the icing on the cake. So basically, I wanted to have the whole cake. That was the idea behind Aleph Alpha, and yeah, I could have never imagined that Gen AI would kind of go so crazy so fast.
And when you sort of look at the landscape of large language models, and then I think it's fair to say that together with Mistral, you're the leading large language model in Europe.
Yeah.
And by size, by significance, by relevance. And when you sort of, but on the other hand, there are obviously many other large language models out there, OpenAI obviously, and a few others. So what do you think is sort of your strategic moat and differentiation that really matters?
So that's a great question, because it's a little bit wild that, to me, a large language model is just a method of learning. It's like a linear regression or a random forest or a support vector machine. And now we're all hyped up around this method. And so we're kind of, this startup is building this LLM, and they are building this LLM, and what's better? And I think this is kind of missing the point, in the sense that no business has a problem of statistically completing sentences. This is just an optimization method that is really powerful, like a linear regression. It's also pretty powerful, but by itself, it's not a business model. So we're building LLMs, of course, but from the very beginning, we focused on building innovation on top. We were the first team to have a multimodal model. We went live with that in 21. We now have an explainability that's live for about a year. We had 3 NeurIPS papers at last conference, 1 best paper, and really what I'm telling the team is, like, of course, we have to understand how to build these models, but this is where we're just getting started with that. Now we're building innovation on top. We're helping to integrate this into business problems, and I think this is really what a lot of teams are still struggling with, in a sense that, yeah, of course, it's cool to have a chatbot that's writing a poem for your mother's birthday, but really, where do you create a lot of value? And I think this is where we're a few steps ahead of some other teams.
And I think when we sort of invested in Aleph Alpha last year, and we sort of looked at sort of what you're building, and we also spoke sort of about international expansion. It was actually quite surprising, but at the same time also obviously great to hear and see that it's actually not that difficult to add different spoken languages, right, to technology. So this is also, I think, why we are here in Singapore this week, is that you are obviously planning to launch here in Asia as well. Yeah. And maybe you can sort of elaborate a little bit on how easy it actually is to add, for example, Bahasa to your languages, in your technology.
So you're saying that it's not that difficult, which our research team might disagree. We've been working on multi-language from the very beginning. As a European company, of course, Europe is multilingual per default. And we just recently filed a patent for a new kind of tokenizer that is able to branch into very different languages. So not just similar languages like you would have in Europe with German or French or Italian, but really languages that have different alphabets, different structure in them. And this is kind of where we're leading, because we are very much focused on the plurality of cultures, on the plurality of languages. And that's also one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this region.
And then obviously the other aspect of basically leveraging and expanding and growing your business, one is obviously the one dimension is going international. The other is obviously going deep into verticals. And I think this is why also Björn is today with us. The idea of basically picking certain verticals. And I think the one thing obviously one thing is obviously target consumers, like OpenAI has done with ChatGPT, and what you are building, Jonas, here also together with Björn, is obviously targeting more the enterprise user. And there are obviously certain verticals, and I think the interesting thing is, and we want to make it a little more tangible and more touchable today. Is that you pick a certain vertical and then you go deep and you build a solution for that, and the use cases are obviously so vast and so there are so many out there, and you have picked one specific one, which is compliance.
Yeah.
What was the idea behind that one?
That's maybe a great question for Björn. Like, why is compliance the most valuable vertical to go after?
First of all, many thanks for being here in Singapore. I really appreciate it. And many thanks for the question, Christian and Jonas. I think each and every of you is dealing with compliance to a certain extent. And each and every company is dealing with this topic. And for us as PwC, we exist for 175 years. And we dealt with compliance all the way. We know each topic, and we think it's a topic you have to deal with to be compliant in your organization, to do your business, because this is your core. Your business is your core, not the compliance is your core. And we can help you to manage this, and this is the basic idea to really focus on something which is not valuable for you, but important for you to be compliant in your world. Be it in Asia, be it in Europe, or wherever else in the world, it's a very important topic.
This was one of the first conversations we had. Björn told me that pretty much all the large enterprises are struggling with compliance. There's new regulation every day. There's extremely difficult to find talent, experienced people, lawyers, compliance professionals, and it's critical. If you screw it up, the leadership is responsible for compliance. So we care about the outcome, but no company has the compliance as a core value driver, like you said, right? So it's just something they need to get done with. And of course, a lot of professional services companies are earning good money with that, but this also doesn't really scale well. So one of the things that we are kind of working on is basically helping people to do work that could not be done any other way, like screening of tens of thousands of contracts, something like that, right? And I think this is, when you think about what is valuable, what's the most valuable part of knowledge work that is, on the other hand, also so structured that you can scale it out, right? Because you don't want to implement every single question for every single enterprise anew. So I think compliance is a perfect match.
And obviously, you have a lot of efficiency gains by doing it, right? One is obviously you lack the human resources to actually do the job, and at the same time, you can do it in a much faster way, with your solution.
Well, and quality, right?
And quality.
Efficiency is just one thing.
Yeah.
Quality is also, like, even humans, even experts make mistakes. Just imagine you are looking through thousands of contracts. How much mistakes would you make, right? And I think this is really it's not inspiring work. It's the kind of work we can leverage AI for. And I'm convinced that in a few years, we'll look back at how we did law maybe a few years ago with like similar horror than we are looking now at the hard manual labor before the last industrial revolution, where people were doing incredibly hard work that we are now have machines to help us with. And of course, the human is still there. The human is not chopping the wood by themselves, but there's operating a chainsaw. So that's a big improvement, right? And similar to that, we still need a human, but we can now have a new general purpose technology we can drive an industrial revolution with.
Yeah, and I think when I sort of heard about sort of what the two of you are planning together, and we will come to that in a second. I think for me it actually can be the blueprint of how traditional firms like PwC will work together with AI companies like Aleph Alpha. So what is it that you are actually announcing today, and how and what is it that you are doing together?
Do you want to go first, Björn?
Of course. Many thanks, Jonas. We had a lot of discussions. What is the right purpose and business case? And as Jonas said, the compliance piece is really a very important one for you, because you want to focus on your business. And we invented a first step of compliance where European Union, but the same applies for Asia as well. In Singapore, you have a comparable regulation where we have to analyze contracts multiple times. I'll give you a brief example. One German bank told me they have to analyze 13,000 contracts within the next 6 months, which is just a tremendous number. Imagine each of these contracts have 5 pages, multiplied with 13,000. Who has time this afternoon for us to review these contracts? And we think this is a great opportunity. And as said, we need trust in this business as well. And this is where Aleph Alpha comes into play, because we trust these guys, because references are made to these contracts. And maybe you can explain it from a more technical view, but I think we have the ability to combine technology with our expert knowledge to deliver a service for each and every company on the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's always been this problem that the tech companies have thought, oh yeah, we're just going to fine-tune an LLM, or we train an LLM, and then we're going to conquer the world. And of course, it's not how it works. You need deep vertical expertise. You need the knowledge that an organization like PwC has. And so I think this is a match made in heaven, certainly, where basically we're combining some of the leading companies in their respective fields. And this is precisely what it takes. It takes the AI capability, and we're adding our unique explainability capabilities to that. You'll see an example in a second. And we are combining this with the know-how and the reach of a PwC on a global scale. Like, nobody is better at compliance at that scale. So I think this is really a team that's in a unique position to win. And we created a startup that we co-own to transform the whole compliance market, basically on a global scale. We're starting with some European regulation, but basically we're already thinking about next steps beyond that. We can look at an example. We have a video. We can start now. I have to get the secret sign. Here we go. So basically, what you see here is the application we're running. And you don't have to memorize this. This will not be in the test. But basically, what's maybe remarkable about this is that it's a new kind of human-machine collaboration. It's not just a chatbot. It's not just like you're asking your chat compliance GPT, tell me which contract is compliant. But what you can actually do is you have a human-machine collaboration. There's a conversation between the AI system. The AI system is trained with the global expertise of PwC experts, and it's leveraging our technology under the hood, the intelligence layer that's combining workflows. And you just saw 2 contracts with like highlighted pieces. These are, in this example, are discrepancies, are conflicts between 2 contracts. There's one regulation, and it says you have to have access to your facilities if you have a service provider contract 24/7. And then there's 2 contracts. One says there's a 24/7 access, and the other kind of limits that to certain weekdays. And so the AI here is based on PwC experience, recognized this as a potential conflict, and it's not just flagging this and classifying this as incompliant, but it's basically now prompting the human. This is the example with our explainability. This is something we invented and published. And it's now prompting the human and telling the human, hey, I found something. It doesn't quite add up. Can you help me? Is one contract outdated? Is one overriding the other? What's going on here? And then the human can go in and say, okay, I've reviewed what the AI helped me with, and I can now make a judgment call and tell both contracts seem to be valid. This really is an actual problem. So we now have a human judgment call. We have human in the loop, or like a human on the steering wheel. And we also have every single interaction fully transparent and reproducible and auditable. So I think this is really something unique. And it's these kind of problems that are so complex, and responsibility of humans is so critical that you can never just do them with chatbots.
And I would just add on it, because the complexity we are seeing in this world is just dramatically increasing. Yeah? Governments, politicians, they are increasing regulation. You all have to deal with this. And we think this is a smart way to deal with it, to find a way to just have these human judgment calls on it, to decide on whether you're going left or right. So this is the basic idea. And I think we can leverage under this umbrella, because many, many topics could be solved in this way. It will change our way of working.
And just think about how much money would you be willing to pay if you wouldn't have to give 13,000 contracts to lawyers.
It's a massive number, it sounds like, right?
It's a huge number, and this is just one regulation in Europe for one bank.
Yeah. When it's obviously not just obviously relevant for Europe, right? So
yeah.
I think Björn, I think you are basically rolling out this this solution or this joint venture, globally, right?
Yeah, we are in the process of doing so, and we can see the similarities of different regulations. As said, what we are currently doing is it's a European regulation because we sit in Europe, but it's comparable in Asia. The comparable rule is already in place in Singapore, for example, and all over the world the regulation pops up, and we have comparable use cases. And we think it's so important to deal with this. However, on the other side, it's not your core business typically. Yeah? And we help you to really focus on your core, to deal with all the other stuff. We would maybe say it's more admin. And this is really a significant efficiency play we are doing here.
Yeah, and we'll be adding stuff, right? So, and to Björn's point, right? Very similar stuff. So all the learnings we are now collecting in our work, we can add to other regions, other regulation, and so this flywheel that we're now getting started, this will eventually get us into a strong position globally.
And Jonas, when you coming back to the basic idea of Aleph Alpha, that you have the horizontal technology and then you build certain verticals on top of it. So obviously compliance is one example, which you're launching today with PwC. What are other verticals you are excited about?
So my golden rule is any vertical I want to commit significant resources towards has to be giant. Has to be like just this vertical has to be a unicorn in 2 years or faster. So I think compliance is a no-brainer, especially with PwC horsepower. And there's other verticals we are pretty strong in government. So government is in dire straits as workforce is declining and complexity is ever increasing. Similar situation. We're also looking at other verticals like, for example, health, medical. Super interesting vertical. But with all those verticals, you should never be arrogant as a tech provider and think you can do it without a super strong partner, right? Because the experience that, for example, at PwC has collected over decades and centuries is something that a tech company that's basically just consisting of a few linear algebra nerds can never build at the same level. And this is something that the tech giants in the US and all around the world are waking up to. They're realizing that they can build cool tech, But without the knowledge of the industry champions, without the knowledge of the experts, it's very difficult to turn that into a huge value.
And obviously also, when it comes to distribution, right? And
Of course, yeah.
client access, I think there's where
we have 375,000 people around the globe in more than 150 countries.
Yeah.
And the expertise Jonas just described is, of course, outstanding. But we also recognize that our way of working is not longer valid. And we need to partner as well and find different ways. And as said, we are in the trust business. You need to trust us in these kind of areas. And this is the reason why we really rely on Aleph Alpha's technology, because we understand where the source of the answers are coming from, so that we can judge, the human judgment will be on the sources the technology is showing us. And this is a super important aspect for us, to have really a trustful human decision at the end of the day.
And Jonas, maybe we use the last 3 minutes to briefly speak about healthcare. What is it that you are particularly interested in healthcare?
So we're not launching healthcare yet.
Yeah.
So don't tell the press. No, I mean, for healthcare, I did a lot of work in computer vision in healthcare in the past, and there are some things humans are really bad at, like diagnosis from images. Humans are not good at that. And everyone in health is overworked. We don't have time for patient care. We don't have time to think about other options. So again, like, there's so much paperwork, there's so much routine work in healthcare where we are extracting resources, we are stressing the medical professionals out, and it leads to bad patient experience, it leads to bad healthcare results. So I think this is really another sector where AI can do tremendous good.
And also basically democratize the entire vertical, right? Because in the past, or even today, if you don't have sort of enough financial resources, you sometimes you don't have access to, good diagnosis, to good doctors. And this is sort of what I think when you say, what is AI for good, right? This is also what I think AI will contribute to society, that you suddenly have access to, you just need the image, but then you can have obviously access to, excellent diagnosis.
If we play our cards right. I mean, this is in the Industrial Revolution, and Industrial Revolution can lead to concentration of power, like has happened in the past. And so this is why we care so much around sovereignty, is that we want to hand sovereignty to our customers, to our partners, basically telling them that they should be able to shape their own destiny. They should be able to understand what's going on. There's no black box, there's no proprietary cloud, there's no basically monopoly player that's trying to capture all the value. And I think this is absolutely crucial because, of course, everyone is operating in their shareholders' interest. But we should have an interest as civil society, as kind of humanity around the globe, that this is not technology that is in the hands of the very few, but it's something that is for the good of everyone.
That's a good closing statement, Jonas. Björn and
we have a code.
Yeah.
This is that one, right? So if you're interested in our compliance, if you have a compliance problem, I'm sure you all have compliance problems. So if you have a compliance problem, you can scan that code and contact us, and we'll solve your compliance problem.
We are more than happy.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming to Singapore, and thank you everyone here in the audience.
Thanks for having us.
For listening. Thank you.
Many thanks.